Over the time span of February 13th through the 17th of 2021, a major winter storm would cripple multiple parts of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. In particular, it was one of three winter storms that you may recognize, as they were pivotal in producing the catastrophic infrastructure failures seen in the 2021 Texas deep freeze. While each of these storms holds significance in their own right, the reason why the 13th through the 17th storm sticks out is because it would produce a tornado outbreak that the residents of North Carolina would never forget. In total, the tornado outbreak produced 6 tornadoes across 3 states, with the strongest one being a significant, high-end EF3 tornado that ripped through southeastern North Carolina. In the late night hours of February 15th, this monster carved a 35-kilometer long, 250-meter wide path of destruction in Brunswick County, emotionally scarring the 144,000 people living in the area. Producing maximum wind speeds of 257 kilometers per hour, it became a major figure in Brunswick County's tornadic history, as it was and still is the strongest tornado to hit the area since records have been officially kept. So today, we're going to talk about it. This is the 2021 Brunswick EF3, also known as the Ocean Isle Tornado. I hope you enjoy. In the early morning hours of February 15th, the first of several convective outlooks was posted by the SPC at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. It predicted a 2% risk of tornadoes and a 5% risk of 50-knot winds along the coastal Carolinas due to advection producing 60-degree dew points, which gave the possibility of the atmosphere becoming unstable later that evening. It was noted at the time that the cold air mass that was in place may reduce the chances of severe weather unless it recovers inland better than expected. If this were to happen, favorable conditions for rotation would have a better chance of occurring because of the development of very strong shear. After the first convective outlook was posted, the risk for severe weather would increase, as a 2 to 5% risk of tornadoes, a 5 to 15% risk of 50-knot winds, and a 5% risk of 1-inch hail was present in the coastal Carolinas in the 8 a.m. outlook. Additionally, it appeared that instability was beginning to develop somewhat inland, with possible ML Cape values ranging from 250 to 500 joules per kilogram inland and 1000 joules per kilogram slightly offshore. Vertical shear values and helicity values were deemed to be favorable for severe weather, as 45 to 55 knot effective shear and 200 to 300 meters squared per second squared helicity was present. After the 8 a.m. outlook was posted, the predictions that were made would remain pretty much unchanged in further convective outlooks, at least in the coastal Carolinas. Because of this, I don't feel that going over them would make a lot of sense, as the increased confidence in the predictions made and the small refinements in the tornado, wind, and hail risk were the only things that really changed from the 8 a.m. outlook to the 3 p.m. outlook, and those changes weren't really that significant. At least, in my opinion, they weren't. Tornadic activity leading up to the Brunswick EF3 was rather light. This was because, as stated before, it was part of the February 15th tornado outbreak, an outbreak that only consisted of 6 tornadoes. The first tornado to touch down was a high-end EF0 in Bay County at 4:02 p.m. Eastern Time. Over the next 8 hours leading up to the Brunswick EF3, 4 more tornadoes would touch down, with the strongest of those 4 being an EF2 that hit in Damascus, Georgia. This tornado was on the ground for 10 minutes, traveled for 18.6 kilometers, produced maximum wind speeds of 209 kilometers per hour, and attained a peak diameter of over 548 meters, making it the largest tornado to touch down in the outbreak. As the day continued on and the night began to creep up, several strong thunderstorms were moving along South Carolina in a northeast direction, being supported by high Cape and effective bulk shear. By 11 p.m., Cape values had risen to over 1,000 joules per kilogram, and effective bulk shear was at around 45 knots. The atmosphere was about to blow, and once the thunderstorms collided with the warm front, it was over. Rotation tightened within the storms, and not long after, it hit. At 11:34 p.m. Eastern Time, The Brunswick EF3 would touch down near the Southwest Old Georgetown Road, Angel Trace Road intersection in the Sea Trail Golf Resort, located near Sunset Beach. While here, it began moving in a northeast direction at high-end EF0 intensity, snapping numerous pine trees with wind speeds of over 128 kilometers per hour. It then crossed a swampy area north of Old Georgetown Road and began rapidly intensifying, blowing off a large portion of the roof of a metal building, overturned numerous RVs, and snapped multiple large pine trees at EF2 strength as it neared Seaside Road. Once the tornado actually made it to Seaside Road, it damaged a church and a large metal building at low-end EF2 intensity with wind speeds of about 185 kilometers per hour. After leaving Seaside Road, the tornado crossed Saw Pit Swamp and continued to rapidly intensify as it began moving towards Ocean Ridge Plantation, and once it got there, it began to reach its peak intensity. The tornado entered Ocean Ridge as a stronger EF2, coming in with wind speeds of 201 kilometers per hour, and almost immediately after it entered the subdivision, it started ripping through the heart of the community. Several hundred trees were snapped, and dozens of homes would sustain minor to moderate damage, many of which were well-built brick structures. It was after this that a switch seemed to flip within the tornado, because as it crossed Southwest Rosebery Court and approached Southwest Cambria Court, it intensified to high-end EF3 strength, its peak intensity. While here, several homes sustained moderate to severe damage, and 2 were utterly decimated with wind speeds of up to 257 kilometers per hour. Interestingly, of those 2 homes that were destroyed, one of them was just completely swept away. This was because despite the fact that it was a well-built structure, it was built on a block foundation, which are vulnerable to borderline violent tornadoes like this one. After leaving the area, it rapidly weakened to low-end EF2 strength as it moved across Windsor Circle, snapping hundreds of trees, rolling a vehicle on its side, and producing moderate to severe damage to many homes with wind speeds of up to 185 kilometers per hour. While it was at a fraction of the strength that it was merely a few minutes prior, it would attain its peak diameter of 251 meters while in the area. After the tornado left Windsor Circle, it would finally leave Ocean Ridge Plantation, abruptly weakening to EF1 strength as it was doing so. After all of that, 3 people were killed and multiple more were injured amidst the chaos. But despite this, the tornado had a long way to go, as it had reached its peak intensity really early in its lifespan. After leaving Ocean Ridge Plantation, the tornado would approach Highway 17 as a high-end EF1 and would destroy a double-wide mobile home with wind speeds of 177 kilometers per hour as it crossed the highway between Grissettown and Cool Run. It would then re-intensify to low-end EF2 strength and went through the woods in the area and northwest Green Bay Road. Hundreds of trees were snapped and multiple metal power poles were leaning, damage that was indicative of 185 km per hour wind speeds. The tornado would slightly intensify to high-end EF2 strength as it went through Old Shallotte Road, and while there, multiple homes were damaged and a storage building was destroyed with wind speeds of 217 km per hour. After this, the tornado then moved through Whiteville Road, where it would damage power lines and produce a continuous path of enormous tree damage for several kilometers across uninhabited forests and swamplands past the road. It then crossed Northwest Federal Road and hit the Bear Pen airstrip, damaging both the airstrip and the trees around it. The tree damage here was interesting because the hundreds of trees that were hit were pushed down in a distinctly fanned-out fashion, which the NWS notes as evidence that a strong microburst north of the tornado's path had occurred here. After leaving the airstrip, the tornado crossed Green Swamp Road, where it would mow down several hundred more trees within the area. The tornado would travel for about 4.8 kilometers after leaving Green Swamp Road, ripping through private logging land in the process and damaging many more trees before finally, after all the chaos that had just taken place, the Brunswick EF3 would dissipate at 12:02 a.m. Eastern Time on February 16th. The aftermath of the tornado was grim, to put it lightly, with how fast things went from bad to worse because of how quickly the tornado had intensified, to the fact that some people didn't have time to react as tornado emergencies weren't issued until after it started inflicting significant damage. It was clear that the situation at hand wasn't good. When everything was said and done, the tornado was on the ground for 28 minutes, had traveled for 35.24 kilometers, attained a peak diameter of 251.5 meters, moved at an average forward speed of 75.5 kilometers per hour and a peak forward speed of 96.6 kilometers per hour, and produced maximum wind speeds of 257.5 kilometers per hour, giving a final rating of EF3. When it came to the people impacted, 3 people were killed, 10 were injured, and many more were emotionally scarred by the impacts of the tornado. Additionally, upwards of 37,000 customers were left without power because of the sheer number of power lines that the tornado had hit through a decent amount of its damage path. The financial losses were really weird with this tornado, as it seems that they just aren't very well documented, or maybe I just suck at research. What is known is that the tornado produced at least $5 million in damages at a restaurant and storage facilities near Sunset Beach, and another $500,000 to the electric grid, giving a total of at least $5.5 million in documented damage and likely millions more in undocumented damage. In the late night hours of February 15th and slightly into the early morning hours of the 16th, a strong high-end EF3 tornado would rip through the southwestern portion of Brunswick County, hitting Ocean Isle the hardest. For 28 minutes across a 35-kilometer lifespan, the tornado did nothing but destroy everything in its path, killing 3 people and injuring 10 more, making it the deadliest tornado to hit southeastern North Carolina since the 2006 Rigelwood EF3 that killed 8 people and injured 20 more. It produced maximum wind speeds of up to 257 kilometers per hour, making it one of the strongest tornadoes to touch down in southeastern North Carolina's recent history. Despite how interesting the tornado's lifespan is to analyze, it doesn't get talked about as much as it should, and I hope that with this video, that this could change a little bit. This was a deep dive into the 2021 Brunswick EF3, also known as the Ocean Isle tornado. Thank you for watching.